Biden administration is preparing to block the acquisition of U.S. Steel by a Japanese company. Reuters says that CFIUS sent Nippon Steel a letter on Saturday saying that deal would pose a national security risk by harming the American steel industry. Joining us right now to talk about the government's involvement with blocking the deal is Dartmouth's Tuck School of Business Dean Matthew Slaughter. And Matthew, looking at this, there's no harbor for this deal. If you look at any section in Washington, just about every politician has said they don't want this to happen. What is the likelihood of it actually passing under that scenario?
Well, at this point, it seems quite unlikely, unfortunately, and that's because essential to national security is economic security. And it's long been the case that engagement with the global economy for the United States, precisely through investments like this of great foreign companies in the United States, has been a major contributor to the economic strength and dynamism of America, which ultimately feeds through the kind of good jobs that everyone seems to rightly be concerned about.
Do you agree that this is a national security threat, that CFIUS should be stepping in here?
Nothing I see in the public domain makes me think this is a national security risk. I sat on CFIUS when I served in the White House on the Council of Economic Advisors. I remember those meetings. There are a lot of legitimate mechanisms in terms of limiting the scope of business, in terms of the nationality of the executives and the boards of directors, of information disclosure requirements. But Japan is one of our most stalwart allies in the world. We long have had very productive companies like Nippon Steel operating in the United States. So it's just kind of hard to see, other than maybe some domestic political considerations, for what's driving this. But again, what we should be thinking about is America's vibrancy in the 21st century and how globalization should be playing a part of that.
You bring up some excellent points about what CFIUS should be looking at. It seems like Nippon has bent over backwards to try and accommodate some of those concerns that would be laid out, just in terms of who the ownership would be. It's a U.S.-based arm of Nippon that would be making this acquisition. They would keep American managers running it, Americans who would be on the board there, a lot of the decisions still being made there. So do you think that this is CFIUS gone awry?
Unfortunately, it seems to be, and I think you're exactly right, Becky, that it's an example of these global companies. When they invest in America, they bring technology, they bring managerial expertise, they bring the financial and physical capital, and the data, I think, are overwhelming and clear on what these benefits have brought. So the most recent U.S. government data is from 2021. That year, there were about 7.9 million Americans, over 6% of the total payroll jobs, who worked for these U.S. affiliates of foreign multinationals. But these companies bring all the kinds of know-how that you just mentioned. These companies accounted for about 14% of all the private sector research and development, about 17% of the capital investment. They exported over 24% of total U.S. exports of goods. And all those productivity-enhancing behaviors, the bottom line was really good jobs. The average compensation in these companies in the U.S. that year was about $87,000, which is over 22% above the rest of the private sector's average. So the benefits, and Nippon Steel, they've been operating in the United States since the 1980s. The benefits to America from these globally engaged companies working here is very clear.
Matthew, my concern on this is Nippon Steel said that it would invest about $1.7 billion in many of these plants. The CEO of the company has said if Nippon doesn't come in, that they are going to be forced to close some plants and that they would probably move their headquarters from Pittsburgh as well. Do we wind up being weaker as a result?
Potentially, and that's what's heartbreaking. I mean, if your concern is about, as it rightly should be, good jobs at good wages, the company has made very clear if this investment doesn't go through, they're going to continue to struggle. And so what is, I think, surprising is America today, it's on both sides of the aisle, both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue. We've lost a story, a leadership story for what it means for the United States to be leading in the global economy. We had that story for a lot of decades from the end of World War II on, and international trade and investment and immigration were central to that. And so part of why we lost that narrative is we did not do enough to address the real concerns that globalization and all its dynamism doesn't benefit every American worker and community and family. But yet, we've got to find mechanisms other than building more walls to address those legitimate concerns.